Antarctica, a continent of ice and rock, twice the size of Australia. It is a land of extremes, of howling winds and blinding blizzards. But beneath this harsh exterior lies a place of breathtaking beauty, a pristine wilderness teeming with life. Antarctica plays a vital role in regulating the Earth's climate. Its vast ice sheets reflect sunlight back into space. This icy continent is intimately connected to the fate of our planet. Imagine for a moment the unthinkable, a nuclear detonation in the heart of Antarctica. The silence of the frozen continent is shattered by a blinding flash and a deafening roar. A mushroom cloud, black with pulverized rock and ice, climbs into the sky, casting an eerie glow across the blinding white landscape. The shockwave races outward at supersonic speed, flattening everything in its path. The immediate aftermath is a scene of unimaginable devastation. A crater, perhaps miles wide, marks the epicenter of the blast. The surrounding ice sheet is vaporized, melted or blasted into the air, forming a radioactive cloud that drifts across the continent. The shockwave triggers avalanches and ice shelf collapses, sending massive tsunamis racing across the Southern Ocean. The intense heat from the blast melts vast quantities of ice, releasing trapped air bubbles and ancient greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Radioactive fallout, carried by the wind, contaminates the ice, snow, and water, poisoning the environment for generations to come. The very air becomes toxic, a lethal cocktail of radioactive particles and ozone-depleting chemicals. The ecological consequences of a nuclear explosion in Antarctica would be nothing short of catastrophic. The immediate blast zone would be rendered lifeless, a radioactive wasteland devoid of any living thing. But the devastation would not end there. The shockwave, the tsunami, and the radioactive fallout would spread far and wide, impacting ecosystems across the continent. Penguin colonies, already struggling with the effects of climate change, would be decimated. Seals, whales, and other marine life would face mass die-offs as the food chain collapses and their habitat becomes contaminated. Krill, tiny crustaceans that form the base of the Antarctic food web, would be particularly vulnerable to the toxic effects of radiation. The delicate balance of the Antarctic ecosystem, honed over millennia, would be irrevocably disrupted. Species extinction, already a pressing concern, would accelerate dramatically. The frozen continent, once a symbol of pristine wilderness, would become a toxic wasteland, a grim reminder of the destructive power of nuclear weapons. Section 4. Global Shivers. The planetary impact. The impact of a nuclear blast in Antarctica would not be confined to the continent itself. The explosion would have far-reaching consequences for the global climate, triggering a cascade of events that could destabilize the planet's delicate environmental balance for decades to come. The massive injection of greenhouse gases, released from the melting ice and burning vegetation, would accelerate global warming, leading to more extreme weather events, rising sea levels, and widespread ecological disruption. The ozone layer, already weakened by human activity, would suffer further damage, exposing life on Earth to harmful ultraviolet radiation. The melting of the Antarctic ice sheet, already underway due to climate change, would accelerate dramatically, contributing to rising sea levels and threatening coastal communities around the world. The influx of fresh water from the melting ice would disrupt ocean currents, altering weather patterns and impacting marine ecosystems. Section 5. A toxic legacy, death in slow motion. The long-term consequences of a nuclear detonation in Antarctica would be felt for generations. Radioactive fallout, carried by wind and ocean currents, would contaminate the global environment, posing a persistent threat to human health and the natural world. Radioactive particles would enter the food chain, accumulating in plants and animals, eventually reaching humans through the consumption of contaminated food and water. The incidence of cancer, birth defects, and other radiation-related illnesses would skyrocket, particularly in populations living in the southern hemisphere. The fragile Antarctic ecosystem, already under stress from climate change and human activity, would be pushed to the brink of collapse. Species extinction would accelerate, biodiversity would plummet, and the continent's ability to support life would be severely compromised. Section 6. Antarctica. Our collective responsibility. The prospect of a nuclear detonation in Antarctica may seem like a dystopian nightmare. This underscores the urgent need for international cooperation and disarmament. Antarctica must never become a testing ground for weapons of mass destruction. The Antarctic Treaty designates Antarctica as a demilitarized zone. It stands as a testament to the power of diplomacy and our shared responsibility. We must strengthen the Antarctic Treaty for peace and environmental protection. The fate of Antarctica is not separate from our own. It is a stark reminder of our interconnectedness and responsibility to safeguard our planet.